I can't see a thing in the bright lights, but I'd like to welcome you here to the Transtastic, Perth's first Trans Pride Party. Your MC this evening is Isla here, the lovely Isla. So when she gives you directions, please listen to them. And yeah, I'm going to hand you over to Isla. Please welcome her to the stage.
Is basically just going to be giving us positive vibes, like good chat, everything like that. And then Jayne McFadyen. So Jayne coming up. Where is Jayne? Where are you? She should be coming up. There we go.
Let's not start I only got asked on Monday if I'd say a few words tonight, and it seems like you've all got the unfortunate task done first, so you can get the boring bit out of the way before you do done, I suppose. But I've been asked to say something positive and upbeat. The other night, thinking, well, what can I say? And I asked my son, he said, well, say some Beatles lyrics. They're always bright and upbeat, so... And I sort of thought about that, thought, I love you, yeah, not really appropriate. 8 days a week, what can I get out of that? Eleanor Rigby, well, we know she keeps her face in a jar, and really not appropriate either, so I thought I'd better find some other subject matter. But sort of mostly thought, well, let's talk about what's happening in the trans community, sort of how it's been in the past, and where we're going, what we're looking at doing. And my first experience, well, with medical industry for the trans industry was back when I was 10 years old, in 1975. And back then, it was a case of being committed to an adolescent psychiatric hospital and discovering this thing called repatriation therapy. But nowadays, for a young child at that age, fortunately, we've got plenty come from Princess Margaret Hospital, where before, as kids are coming into their adolescence, they're able to get on hormone blockers to give them sort of time to consider what their future's going to be. They can get appropriate counselling. My next sort of special medical was probably in the late 80s, early 90s, where I actually had a psychiatrist told me that the reason I felt the way I do about myself is because apparently I was jealous of my sister, so... but when I actually sort of seriously looked at going onto hormones and transitioning, that was late 90s, and we had what's referred to as the gatekeeper model. You saw your doctor, they sent you to a psychiatrist, they cleared you, they got to see their endocrinologist, they also cleared you. You were then allowed to start on, well, for me it was anti-androgens. And after being on that for a little while, with their approval again, I could then start on hormones. Whereas nowadays, for anyone sort of that's looking at starting to go through transition, mostly you need to see a psychologist or psychiatrist just to make sure that you sort of know what you're doing, that you understand what's happening and what you're choosing to do, and then you can go on hormones. You don't actually need to pass all these gatekeepers anymore, which is a major step forward from what it used to be. And we'd like to see that concept model actually go across the board for everyone. Also, recent things with being transgendered was still is to some degree, a psychiatric diagnosis. Good old definition of the American DSM, the Diagnostic Statistics Manual. If you've got a mental disorder, it's in there. However, the most recent review of that's taken a lot of our definition out for transgender people, and we're almost caught up to the rest of the gay and lesbian community where we're almost not a psychiatric disorder anymore, which is really good. But really fantastic news is earlier this week, I actually read that what's called the ICD, which is the International Something of Disorders, by their World Health Organisation. It's actually proposing that they take transsexual completely out of their mental health issue and just move it into general medical as gender incongruence. Yay! So that's not yet decided, and I believe it's still in the proposal stage. but it's something that, as a community, I think we all need to get behind and sort of, let's depathologise being trans. Let's get the medical profession everyone recognising that we're a normal, I hate using the word deviation, but we're a normal part of life. So that looks like sort of where we're going in the future medical-wise, which is fantastic. In other things, we've sort of still got a long way to go in regards to EEO legislation, which as a community, I think we need to sort of start getting onto our politicians, because at the moment, you can only be covered by EEO if you get the gender reassignment certificate. And I'm sure a load of people here have looked at that and know the difficulties at times with the definitions. And whilst the boundaries have been pushed as to the medical procedure was originally considered to only be surgery, they now recognise that hormonal reassignment is also a medical procedure. So we have been pushing the definition as a community, but we need to get onto our politicians and get them to change the EEO legislation so that every trans person is covered for discrimination. I personally found the most time I needed the legislation was when I was just starting as coming out as transgendered, and yet there was nothing to protect me. I'm fortunate now that I've got a certificate and I have EEO protection, but it's no longer an issue for me. But I know it is an issue for people that are just starting out on their journey. As a community, we need to sort of all come together as well. I know there's been issues in the past, they're in the past. What we need to do is as a community come together, and Nick's got a good group running the Transmet, so I'd like to give a big thank you to Nick and his group for organising tonight. But there's issues at the moment such as we're looking at trying to get a national funding across all states for mental health funding for trans people, that not just sort of linked in with Q-Line and some of the other issues, but actually to get out there and be recognised on our own, to get our own groups supporting ourselves. And that means the community of Perth coming back together, all working as a group and getting things happening in WA. I personally would love to see something along similar lines as the Gender Central Sydney. We've got a place for resources, we've got a place for support. We have people working so that if anyone's homeless, we're able to work with various communities and find them accommodation, to get them accommodation. Even if it means that as a group we end up running accommodation ourselves eventually and start applying for funding that way. So I think as a group we have a very, very bright future. We now see we're getting a lot more respect in mainstream media. With I suppose part of that's coming out of Caitlyn Jenner this year. But at the same time, when you, if you read Facebook or any of those groups, we still see there's a lot of transphobic comments out there as well. So, but together we can get there, we can overcome our challenges, and I see that we're a group with a very bright future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayne, for giving us that chat. I think it's a very valid point that we all need to kind of unite, because without each other we don't really have anybody else, and I think sometimes it can feel a bit like the T in LGBT isn't really included, and we kind of have to unite and work with each other to, if we don't belong, we have to belong together. And speaking of belonging together, there is some food over there, and like everybody loves food, so there's free food. And don't forget that there's also one champagne per person if you're drinking. If you're driving, maybe pass it to your friend. And then other than that, there's also an art display just inside. So we're going to be waiting and setting up the next act, but we'll let you know when they come on.